counted up my money, put it in, and then looked to see what I should have, and it was a 9,000 discrepancy. In the back of my mind was, I've just refurbished my shop. I've taken out a big loan. This must look like I needed the money.
The accounting software was saying money was going missing when it wasn't going missing.
There's evidence dating back to 2010 that states that the IT system's at fault. So how they can continue to blacken people's names is just beyond me.
And I actually firmly believe these people are the criminals. None of us were.
At the turn of the century, the Post Office rolled out a new IT system to all its sites across the country. It was called Horizon. It was meant to be a bold move away from manual accounting, but a glitch in the software led to devastating consequences for hundreds of postmasters.
There's not a day goes past, I mean, whether it be walking past a post box, a Royal Mail van driving past you, the postie sticking the letters through the door, it always makes you think the post office.
For more than a decade, former postmaster Mr Dawson has been haunted by a computing error which cost him his livelihood. Chris had been running Pitlochry Post Office for 3 years when a transaction went wrong.
There was a 00 on the keyboard, which is very unusual, so unfortunately it was inputted as 42,000 instead of 4,200. We very quickly identified it, reported it straight back to the helpline. 6 weeks came and went, and there was still a shortfall of £17,500. That's when we started realising that there had been an issue.
The Post Office accused him of stealing the money and sent 2 investigators to search his house.
2 people, I'm not going to call them gentlemen, arrived at my house, big burly men in black suits, and from the get-go extremely intimidating, almost threatening. I was denied my right to a lawyer. There was no investigation, it was an interrogation. It was just, you took this money, where is it? I knew I was on to a loser from there. When you're up against an institution that's over 300 years old, you don't stand a chance.
Chris's life imploded, and although he didn't face criminal charges, he was suspended. For months, he still had to pay the running costs at the post office branch he couldn't run, and he sank into a deep depression.
I tried battling on for a number of months, but eventually had to declare myself bankrupt. We lost the house, everything just fell apart. I don't think that any marriage, no matter how strong, could have survived the amount of stress that both of us were put under, because I mean it wasn't just me that was under suspicion, even though my wife at the time didn't have anything to do with the day-to-day runnings. She was still the wife of that guy.
And particularly working in a post office, you would have been such a well-kent face, you know, the heart of the community.
The thought of walking around the local town terrified me. Felt that everybody was thinking, you're that guy that stole from the post office, and just felt like the local pariah.
At the time, Chris didn't know there were many others facing the same accusations.
Over the last 2 decades, more than 700 postmasters across the UK have been wrongly convicted of theft, fraud and false accounting. Some were jailed and others died before they had the chance to clear their names. In Scotland, 73 people were convicted.
The thing that continues to surprise me is how resistant the post office was, and in some ways still is, to kind of just, I guess, barreling ahead with righting this wrong. I think it comes down to wanting to protect the brand and the organisation. So if they had admitted that Horizon was chucking out these errors just randomly, they would have had to have admitted that they didn't know the difference between real fraud and Horizon error. So I think it just became really entrenched that they had to protect this system at all costs.
Myra and her late mother Mary took over a post office in Auchtermuchty in Fife in 2001. Within weeks, they noticed problems with the computer system that had recently been introduced.
My mother, being my mother, thought she was doing something wrong. We had shortfalls, I reckon, of 56,000, but that wasn't including the small amounts that were going in most weeks. I remember on one occasion her doing it all on paper and then doing it in the system, and the two just didn't add up. She then started questioning Horizon. She would tell the post office, there's something wrong with your computer system. Well, how can that be? You're the only person that it's happening to. And in the end, it kind of felt like they thought she was stealing money. That was it. My mother never worked again.
Myra and her mum had to sell their premises to pay the losses, but the stigma within the community remained. Your mum had been a police officer. She was a very honest, intelligent person. It must have been soul destroying for her.
It just devastated her. She had a very high set of personal values and a lot of pride, but it robbed her of all of that.
And for the two of you, how did it affect your lives?
Financially, yes, it had an impact, but mentally as well. I don't even like going near the village anymore. The shame, the condemnation, the injustice, most of all, the injustice.
20 years on from the start of her ordeal, there's no closure for Myra. She's among 10 Scots who gave evidence at a UK-wide inquiry this week to highlight the impact of this devastating scandal.
We've heard stories, accounts from people from the lowlands to the highlands, people who deeply respected in their communities, people they've grown there for generations, who've had their lives taken apart, lost their homes, lost their reputations, lost their livelihoods. The devastation couldn't be more severe. And what they want is they want their reputations back. They are not looking for some windfall of compensation. They are just desperately trying to get back to zero.
But for some, it's too late. Myra's mum died 4 years ago.
What do you think she'd make of where we're at now?
She'd be very angry. She had this saying, she was like, you do your best work when you're angry, get your donder up. They hold all the cards, they hold all the evidence, they hold all the compensation, and, well, as far as I'm concerned, they hold all the psychological torture as well.
The Post Office says it's sincerely sorry for the impact the Horizon scandal has had on the lives of victims and their families. It says it's openly and transparently assisting the inquiry in its important work to determine what went wrong. After losing a legal battle in the High Court, the Post Office was forced to compensate 72 postmasters whose convictions were overruled. It's now also running an historic shortfall scheme to repay the many hundreds who lost out. But not everyone has been able to claim back what they are owed.
Their arrogance knows no bounds. They're arrogant enough to turn around and tell me, and effectively my dead mother, you know, yeah, you were right all along, but we criminalised you, we destroyed your life. And by the way, you know, you're too late. You didn't apply in time.
So many postmasters remain out of pocket because they had no choice but to repay the losses. They were contractually obliged to make up for any shortfalls after cashing up. Otherwise, they faced losing their job.
I just got the letter saying to come to some sort of arrangement of repaying it. And I did, because that's what you had to do.
Back in 2007, Nancy refurbished her post office after taking out a loan. Even 20 years' experience working as a postmaster couldn't have prepared her for what happened next.
Counted up my money, put it in, and then looked to see what I should have, and it was a 9,000 discrepancy. But I was there till midnight, recounting, just going through everything. Just couldn't make any head nor tail of it.
It's a lot of money.
Well, for me at that time, it was a year's salary, and I was paying the loan back, plus paying back the post office what the shortage was.
You still work at the post office. Why? After all you've been through?
I think I've been there for so long. I love the people that I work for. I love the people, my customers are all wonderful people, and I love meeting them every day. I like my work. I like my work.
And what's happened to you just hasn't taken away from that?
No, it's made me a bit nervous when I bounce. I press the buttons in my stomach as butterflies. And then it says, I go, yes!
Every day, do you feel that?
Yes. Yeah, it's with me every day. Every day.
As more and more victims speak out and the inquiry gathers pace, there's hope that justice is finally in sight.
They have to be held to account. They absolutely have to be held to account.
I would like to see the law come after them. It needs to end, and there needs to be proper reparation.
A couple of years ago, I was just happy for it to be discovered. Now I feel they owe me that money back because they knew about it. Somebody in there knew.